Okay, so
Yeah.
just to get the sound, what's your favourite dinosaur and why?
Stegosaurus, because I like the word and because it's a sort of typical dinosaur, monstrous body, tiny head, lots of armour plating and sort of mad armour plated spines all along its back.
Fantastic. So, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Rome, I was brought up in London, and I've lived in High Peak for about 25 years.
And why are you living in the High Peak now?
Well, initially I moved here because my work moved up from London to Manchester. I stayed in Manchester for about 6 months, but I didn't really like living in Manchester, wanted to live in the country. And the opportunity came up to move to the Hope Valley, so that's what I did, and it was a very good decision.
What were your first and latest jobs?
My first job was working in a shop when I was at school, and my last job was managing a project which brought together universities in the UK and in various countries around the world for research, mainly scientific research and some other research. So working with people in all different countries.
So what experience and skills would you bring to this job?
Well, first of all, as I said, my job, well, several of my jobs actually, involved working with people across cultures, all different people, and having to listen to what they say, work on their priorities within a sort of structure, really. I've been a counsellor on High Peak Borough Council for 5 years, and I also volunteer for Citizens Advice. So I'm very experienced in sort of casework, then listening to people, thinking about how I can help them, looking at what's available for them, and also fighting their corner. And also on the council and elsewhere, I've had to work with other people. I mean, the Green Party is quite a small party, so it has to work with people who it might disagree with in many ways, but work with them when it agrees with them, and sort of make friends in that way. And I'm pretty experienced. I've done different jobs, different things in the High Peak. I'm quite good at sort of understanding issues quite quickly, different issues from, I don't know, traffic to nature conservation to terrible benefit system, which it seems to me MPs absolutely have to do to be quite quick on the uptake in that kind of way, as well as understanding the rules actually. I mean, if you read about people in Parliament or books by people in Parliament, the rules are absolutely torturous. So I've done a lot of that in my time working on grant-giving projects.
Okay. What standards do you expect from your elected politicians?
Well, there are the Nolan standards, which I'm not going to recite in fact, but honesty, lack of corruption, integrity, some sort of principle so you don't flip-flop the whole time, listening to people, not the kind of ding-dong of party politics, which seems such a waste of time, and not to get the things that people need actually done. Yeah.
Okay. What are your three favourite things about the High Peak?
Yeah, I think one thing is community. When I lived in London, I barely knew my neighbours at all. Didn't ever chat to them really. People are mostly friendly. There's a very strong sense of community, of sort of belonging, and people are supportive of each other. So I think that came out most in COVID, but I think it also happens, if there's someone who's lonely, quite often, not always, but quite often neighbours will drop in on them and so on, make sure they're okay. So that sense of community and kind of friendliness. I like the fact that it's all different. So obviously the Hope Valley where I live is very different from the market towns. the small towns, but the villages with the Hope Valley are different from each other. The towns are different, and not just in terms of their buildings and so on, but also how people are, what they like to do, what their community organisations do. And that's another thing, actually, that's referring to the first question, which is very good about High Peak. I mean, the amount of community activism is incredible. So, yeah. And the third one is the countryside. I mean, one of the things I most like to do to relax is walking the countryside and looking at the flowers, the birds, thinking about the sort of natural history aspects, talking about that to people. And that's, this is a very good place for that, even if you live in the towns, actually. I mean, Buxton, for example, has amazing woodland around it. Again, managed by a community group. So,
just 1 minute. Carry on.
So I like the variety within High Peak. And the nature.
Fantastic. What are the top 3 problems in the High Peak right now?
Well, I mean, there are problems of sort of underfunding of local authorities and so on, which goes for everywhere. In High Peak, affordable housing, transport, and the economy.
How would you solve those problems?
Yeah, transport, and this is both sort of local but also very, very much national. We need to work hard to encourage people to use cars less, because basically the problem with transport partly revolves around cars. But people have to use their cars because there aren't really alternatives very often. It's very difficult, for example, to travel between one town and another, or between one town into the countryside without a car. So the first thing we need is much better public transport. And there's sort of little workings at the edges around that. So there's a bus service improvement plan, which I have to say is not doing a great deal for High Peak, but it does exist. But it's not strategic. It's got sort of little mini projects in it, but there's no real thinking about how we can get what people want. And what people want has been developed in several places, Hope Valley, Glossop, Buxton, Hayfield, by local groups. And that is regular, reliable, very important, frequent public transport, which connects people to where they want to go. So, for example, people in Glossop would like a regular, frequent bus to Sheffield. People in the Hope Valley would like connections with Chapel and Buxton, where they often do their shopping. So there needs to be a proper integrated plan, based partly on the work that's already been done by the local groups, but also as part of a national strategy, really, to develop proper public transport according to local need. And the other thing we need, which again is being worked on by community groups and has sort of little bits of piecemeal funding, like the active travel plan for Glossop, from, well, in this case from Derbyshire, but that's not enough. It's got to be made much easier for people to walk and cycle within their towns, and if they're very fit, between their towns, but we're mainly really talking about sort of everybody here. So ordinary people who are able to can go to the shops or whatever, walking, because it's safe and pleasant and there are fewer cars, and the same with people who can cycle. Moving on to the economy, obviously that is partly what in fact is very much a national problem, and the first thing the Green Party would do is to raise the level of universal credit and also to raise the living wage, and that would help the local economy, because citizens' advice, almost everybody I see who's distressed financially becomes depressed and anxious about how on earth they're going to live, and that completely distracts them from using their skills to actually get into the workplace. So at national level, we really need to support people with, I suppose, the cost of living to raise their incomes, so that they do feel able to go out and train and work and so on. And to work quite often in the tourism industry. I mean, that's one industry which quite rightly High Peak is trying to boost. And that needs to be managed in different ways. So we need to attract people into the market towns such as Gloucester. So I'm sitting opposite the old town hall, and I know that the indoor market has been beautifully renovated. But we need to get people into Gloucester to spend money in that market and to make it viable. And also to boost the local economy, produce an income for the storeholders. And also, in the market hall, that could benefit people who actually can't make a huge income through the raise in universal credit and so on, to fill the spaces for creative activities and so on, free spaces. But boosting tourism also means having decent public transport, because the Hope Valley is absolutely crowded with cars, which rather ruins the nature, the appearance of the place, which is why people come there. Their enjoyment of the countryside and also has negative impacts on local communities. So all these things are actually connected.
Okay. Finally, why should we trust you?
Well, I'm honest. I say what I mean. I'm definitely not corrupt. I mean, I would challenge anyone to find an instance of me being corrupt. I'm pretty consistent, as people will vouch for. I talk about things in the same kind of way about environment, obviously. I'm a Green Party candidate. Also, I'm consistent about caring for people who are less advantaged than me. I mean, I know that I'm comparatively advantaged, but that doesn't mean I don't care about other people, about the people that I talk to as a counsellor and also systems advice. So I'm good at working with other people, as I've already said, which is pretty essential. And I don't kind of get into rows for the sake of it. I really think party politics is terrible. And I'm pretty straightforward. I mean, I say what I think. What you see is what you get.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.